everyone, welcome back to Creatively Crafted Life. This is Melanie and it's another installment in my Use Your Scrap series. And today we're going to focus on cutting up our scraps into strips, applying them to some printer paper, and basically coming up with our own pattern paper that we'll then use die cuts like this one to create some sort of focal point for our cards. So what I'm going to do is a combination of sequin tape and liquid glue to adhere the strips in a pattern going across, and then once that's done I will die cut out with the shape. And I've got a bunch of shapes here that I thought I could play around with. I have these half circle type, or what do they call them, arches. I've got some starbursts. I've got some different Xyron frames, Spellbinders frames, as well as this MFT hexagon. So I thought I'd play around with those, and I will show you what this initial piece looks like once all the strips are laid down, and then I'll cut it out, show you that, and then I will come back with all the different items that I've created at the end. Okay, so this is an example of what I'm going for, and now I'm just gonna run this through my die cut machine and cut out my shape. Okay, so I didn't cut it out very straight, but you get the idea. I really like the ones with the stitches around them because it helps make it look like this was one piece the way it was intended. So if you were to take a card base now, just as an example of what you could do, is we could attach this to the card base, or maybe do something like this. I like that. And then affix a focal point or a banner or a sentiment or something like that. So I'm going to make a whole bunch of these and I will show you what I come up with. Okay, I've put together a few different shapes I thought I would show you. I did find that just using glue actually worked better than using the score tape. I would just run a bead of this along the paper and then apply the strip on top, and that seemed to work pretty well. So the very first one I had shown you was this one here, where I had cut it with the horizontal lines, and then I did a couple where I cut them the opposite way, so now they're vertical. I also cut a smaller one, so these are mostly the same idea. Then I took a different set of pattern paper and I cut a circle. And then I thought it would be kind of fun if I cut frames and then rotated them to see how that looked. So I've got kind of this patchworky border around it, and I think that looks kind of cute. I might end up putting in a white circle here and then maybe stamp a sentiment or something like that. And then I took a starburst one and die cut that out. Like how that turned out. And then I did a different pattern and used the very large starburst. And I will probably trim this in half and use this on a card. So the next thing to do is make some cards using these, and I will be back. Okay, so I think these cards are complete. I'm going to keep them fairly simple because I think these would make some great masculine cards to send to my nephews, brothers, dad, etc. And usually when I make more masculine cards, I don't tend to do a lot of additional embellishing. Not that you can't, it's just something that I tend to lean towards. So the first 4 cards here are all the same, right? These are the ones with the arch die cut. I just found a sentiment and added that to one of the smaller arches and lined it up. I also embossed the paper that I threw in the background here. This was just plain cardstock, and I used a Gears embossing folder from Tim Holtz, and I really like how that turned out. The next 3 cards are basically the same design. I just tweaked them a little bit. So these 2 here are exactly the same. The only thing different is when I trimmed this in half, I didn't trim it exactly in half, but that's okay. I just shifted the sentiment over a little bit and trimmed that off, and that is that card. For this one here, instead of aligning the strip right against the edge, I moved it over a little bit and allowed the full circle to remain as is, and then added the sentiment. These two are also basically the same design, just with a few small differences. So this one, I used the same background that I used for the other arch striped embellishment pieces here, except this is the smaller one. I took some scrap foiled cardstock that I had, added a sentiment banner, and on this one here I kept it very simple and just have the circle stripe piece that I created and added the sentiment. So this one doesn't have a background like this, but the circle is significantly larger than this arch, so I think that works. I also just did a black dash around the outside just to kind of finish that off. And then the last card that I have to share with you is this one with that patchwork kind of look. I took that strip of cardstock like I used in the other ones and shifted it all the way to the center and then just adhered the sentiment piece in the middle. So those are the cards that I made using some of my pattern scraps and strips of paper. I hope you enjoyed, and until next time, happy crafting.